Welcome everybody for another round of Charlie Brown Politics. I'm Charlie Brown. Now, I've talked about this guy before, Piers Morgan. I said, I don't know what to make of this guy. Yeah, he's corporate, he's establishment, he's always towing the status quo, the narrative that corporate news and media is trying to shove down our throats at all times. Yes. But with that being said, when it's been coming to the Palestinian and Israeli conflict going on in the Middle East, he is towing that corporate narrative, that status quo, like in other subjects and stories, but he is allowing the other side to come on his platform and speak and give their voice and their opinions, and he's doing it quite often, and it's generating a lot of views. Now, Piers decides to have a high-ranking Israeli official. He is the senior advisor to Bibi Netanyahu himself, and this guy's name is like Mark Regev. I'm mispronouncing his last name. He's had him on recently, but so we're gonna watch this interview that Piers does with Mark, and believe it or not, Piers actually asked him a handful of really, really good questions that should be asked, and of course Mark is going to feed him with propaganda in his answers, but at least these questions are being asked. So without further ado, let's jump right into this video. There's a lot to react, a lot to listen to, so we're not going to watch everything, but we're going to watch a good chunk of it.
The big question now is exactly what is the game plan for Israel? You're moving into the south. There are, as we know, 2 million Palestinians now crowded into a 90 square mile area. This is already clearly, I would say, indisputably a humanitarian crisis there. But also they were told to go south to be safe. Now they're being attacked in the south. Nowhere is safe now in Gaza. Would you accept that?
All right, first pause. This first question that Piers opens up with, that the refugees of Gaza in northern Gaza everybody in Gaza was told to retreat to the south. You'll be safer in the south. That's where you should go. And reports are coming out now, as Piers said, that Israel's attacking the south of Gaza. So how is this making sense when you tell everybody to retreat to a certain place and now you're attacking it? Great question. Is there anybody that's actually safe in Gaza? Because that part doesn't make a lot of sense. And of course, this guy's going to spew a lot of propaganda back at Piers. But props to Piers for his first question being spot on. So let's hear what this guy has to say.
No. When we told people to relocate to the south, it was true. The fighting was concentrating in the north, and we asked people to move to the south because they'd be safer. And that was true then. Now the operation is continuing into areas of the south, and we've specified, as has been widely reported, specific areas in the south which remain safer zones, and we've urged people to relocate there. Now, we know it's difficult to move.
All right, next pause. So he just said that Israel is now giving warnings to certain sections in the south, saying that this section is a safe zone, this section is a combat zone, and it doesn't have, he didn't mention this, but the warning systems that they're giving these people are leaflets that are being dropped on a house. What's a leaflet? It's a piece of paper, it's a flyer, that gets dropped on your house saying leave or you will be bombed. Now, this is not adequate, okay? This is something you do to advertise for a college frat party, for fuck's sakes. This is not something you do to warn people that they're about to die. If I had a piece of paper fall on my house right now, I would not know it. None of us would. Let's progress. Now, the next thing that they're going to be using, okay, to warn the citizens of Gaza that they're in a safe zone or they're not in a safe zone is these QR codes that you can use on your phone. And you look it up and you look at this map and it tells you if you're in a red or a blue area or a safe or a not safe. I don't know what the color scheme is. So what's the problem with that, everybody? Gaza has no fucking electricity. They don't have internet access, okay? If they do, it's very limited. Hello? How the fuck are they supposed to look at some QR fucking code when they don't have access to electricity? So, those are a few points that I want to point out. Let's continue listening to what this D-bag has to say.
Father was a refugee. He had to move from place to place in the Second World War to save his life. I know it's difficult to move, but surely it's better to move than it is to stay in a combat zone and get caught up in crossfire. It's all a matter of managing risk. We want to see civilians outside combat zones. We don't want to see them accidentally hurt. It's best for them to move. And the truth is, we're seeing now Gazans are voting with their feet and are moving to the areas which we've specified as safer areas.
But eventually, this operation is going to clearly lead to you attacking all over Gaza. Where do they eventually move, all these people? Is the operation actually designed to permanently displace the Palestinian people, as some fear?
Great question again, Piers. I can't believe it. Yeah, I got plenty of criticisms of Piers, but that was another really good question. Is this the actual objective, to just get rid of all of the people in Gaza? And of course, this guy's going to come back with some propaganda shitball answer. But yeah, shout out again. Let's hear what this guy has to say.
No, not at all. And we hope that people can, when the fighting is over, that people can go back to their homes, and where homes have been destroyed because of the fighting, and there'll be temporary shelters for them, I hope.
Go. What is this guy talking about? Go back to their homes after the fighting is done? Have you guys seen the pictures of Gaza? It's incredible. It's like 2 nuclear bombs dropped on them. The destruction and the amount of like their buildings being destroyed is unfathomable. So I don't know what the hell this guy is talking about. Then hopefully there'll be temporary shelters. No, this guy's full of shit. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Let's keep bearing through this. There's more to see.
But it is common sense. Our enemy is Hamas, and as you know, Hamas has embedded itself in civilian neighborhoods, in mosques, in schools, in hospitals, unfortunately. And we've had to fight Hamas, and we will defeat Hamas. But once Hamas is defeated, of course, we'll be allowing people to return to their homes. And of course, there'll be a massive rebuilding and reconstruction campaign of Gaza. That's going to be needed.
How many terrorists have you killed?
Another great question, Piers. Because if we're looking at the ratio of civilians to Hamas dead, this question is quite significant. So let's listen to what this guy has to say.
So I can't give you an exact amount because the war is still going on, but we see the death toll in fatalities on the terrorist side in the thousands.
But if you don't know, how do you know, if you know what I mean?
Well, we've got estimates, but because we're not sure, and I'll explain to you why we're not sure. You blow up an underground bunker, yes, which Hamas has got these underground fortifications across the Gaza Strip. You destroy it. You don't necessarily know if there were 10 terrorists inside or 20 or 50, yes, because you've destroyed an underground.
And you could further progress this argument and say you don't know if there were 10 civilians inside. You don't know if there were 20 civilians inside. You don't know if there were 100 and only one Hamas fighter. It's hard to tell when there's a whole building collapse on top of all of your evidence you need to figure this problem out. So, in other words, this guy is trying to pretend like they know the actual number of Hamas fighters that they've taken down. But that's a bunch of bullshit, okay? He doesn't know specifically any numbers. He's pulling these numbers out of his ass, and like I said, Piers is a corporate tool, but he's pushing back as well as I could ever imagine Piers Morgan to be pushing back. So shout out again to Piers. I can't believe I'm saying this so often in the video. I don't know. It's weird.
Fortification. So it's all based on approximations. When this is over, I think we'll have a more precise understanding of the numbers. But I've been in briefings.
Yeah, when this is over, then we can tell you how many civilians we actually killed and how many fighters, and we won't fudge the numbers at all.
And I've heard the numbers. It's in the thousands.
Right. I mean, I hear this from the Israeli side, but nobody seems to be able to produce any concrete evidence.
It's just like here in the States, okay, when they're like, our intelligence services have evidence, and spoken to the intelligence people and they've told me about this evidence, but then they don't come out and show you the evidence. Their evidence is the fact that they talked to some type of intelligence person. That's what this guy is saying. I've been behind the closed doors and they've seen me, and they've shown me the numbers, and I could tell you what the numbers are. They're in the thousands. No, this guy doesn't fucking know. Talking to intelligence services is not evidence. Let's suffer through a little bit more here, guys.
And I understand slightly the fog of war, but the significance of this is that if you can't actually produce hard evidence of how many Hamas terrorists you're killing, and the death toll of innocent civilians keeps rising and rising and rising, as it has done now, over 15,000 by the Hamas-run health authorities' estimation, you know the public opprobrium that's coming Israel's way the longer this goes on. Isn't it incumbent on Israel to actually be able to produce clear evidence of the volume of Hamas terrorists you're killing? Because if there are 35,000 of them and you've only killed 1,000 or 2,000 so far, then the fear is that the civilian death toll is going to be 100,000, 200,000 before you can even think about eradicating Hamas. What is the line for Israel? Is there one?
Another great question asking about the ratio of civilian deaths to combatant fighter deaths. And Pierce has had people come on his program and to ask him about this ratio and ask him if this was an acceptable ratio, and he was kind of stuck and didn't have a great answer for it. So for him to maybe have listened to him, I think it was Muhammad Hijab that asked him that question. Maybe he listened to him a little bit. Of course, this guy's going to give him back some propaganda. Pierce also asked, like, is there a line? Is there too much? Like, are there is there like a number that shouldn't be crossed? Is there like a ratio that shouldn't be reached? Is there anything that you won't go through to complete your objective? And this guy's going to, of course, feed us with a bunch of propaganda, and eventually he's just going to say, no, there is no line, but he's going to try to veneer it in some humanitarian bullshit. So let's hear what this guy has to say.
Or is there no limit on civilian casualties so long as you've still got Hamas terrorists to kill?
So first of all, we don't want to see a single civilian casualty. You've heard me say that before, and we mean it. We don't want to see civilians caught up in the crossfire. That's why we're urging people to leave combat zones.
With leaflets and QR codes for your phone where you don't have electricity.
Common sense. If we don't want to see them get caught up in the fighting between the Israeli Defense Forces and Hamas, please.
And sorry for pausing it so many times, but this is just crazy. And so he's like, we don't want to see one single civilian taken from the earth. So that can mislead you, okay? That can make you think that they actually care. No, what he's really saying is like, oh, we don't necessarily want to see that, but he doesn't come out right and say like, yo, this he's pretty much going to keep doing his objective no matter what, even though they don't want to see the loss of civilian life or whatever it is. So really what he is saying is, no, there is no line that we won't cross to complete what we want to complete. Sorry, let's suffer through a little bit more.
We urge people to leave combat zones, and most of the civilians do so. Hamas, as you know, and has been reported, they've urged people to stay, ordered people to stay even at gunpoint, because they want those Gazan civilians as a human shield. But what right-minded person agrees to be a human shield for Hamas? Of course they want to leave, and we have to facilitate their leave. And even now, as we move towards our ground incursion in the south, I can assure you that escape routes will be there for the civilians to still reach the safe areas, because we don't want to see them come into harm's way. And we'll make every effort possible. About the numbers,
No, there's so much evidence out there saying the exact opposite. Do you guys remember when Israel told all the refugees to go to the Rafah crossing, to escape south to the Rafah crossing, and then there were instantly reports about the Rafah crossing being bombed by Israel? Okay, so yeah, like I said, this guy has got a lot of propaganda that we have to get through. There's one more question. I'm going to skip forward here just a little bit, and Pierce is going to ask him a great question. It is going to be, what does victory look like? And listen up, because his answer has a lot of tells in it, and a lot of giveaways of what Israel wants this war to actually look like. So, without further ado.
Alive at the end of this, is that victory, or do they simply bide their time, regroup, and come back at Israel even stronger because so many people will have been killed by then in Gaza?
So when victory is the destruction.
Sorry, let me rewind that a little bit further. I don't think we caught the whole question. Apologies.
People, that's what they want to see. And so far, once again, we had fatalities last week, but I think overall we've managed to keep the level of violence relatively low, and that's a good thing for Israelis and Palestinians.
Final question. What is victory going to look like here? I mean, if there are still Hamas terrorists alive at the end of this, is that victory, or do they simply bide their time, regroup, and come back at Israel even stronger because so many people will have been killed by then in Gaza?
All right, quick pause again. What does victory look like? This is such an important question, and this was a question that kept on getting brought up back when we were in the Middle East for 20 years. And yes, I know we still have a lot of action going on over there as well, but this was a question when we had Iraq and Afghanistan going on, is like, what does victory look like? And it was always this like ambiguous fucking answer that no one could really give us a full answer. And this guy, listen up to what he has to say.
So when victory is the destruction of Hamas's military machine and the end of their political control over the Gaza Strip, a bit like victory over ISIS in Iraq and Syria. You didn't have to kill every last ISIS.
That's the point. Okay, victory over Iraq, victory over Syria. So, if I went back, I wouldn't say that we won in either one of those places. We totally lost. And so he literally just said in a nutshell, he wants it to look like what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, if you look at what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, millions of people were displaced. People say up to 1 million people lost their lives. Their places are now failed and collapsed states that their forms of government have sunk in. And when you have a vacuum like that, a sudden power vacuum, certain people take that vacuum and fill it in, and a lot of times it's not good people, like extremist fashions or the mob, or just wherever you're located pretty much. And so that's the point that I wanted to point out. His version of victory is going to be what we called victory in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, I think we've suffered through this video far enough. Go watch the whole video, guys. Once, like I said, Piers actually asked him a list of very good questions that needed to be asked, and this guy is a senior advisor to Bibi Netanyahu himself, and not like Piers is going to change this guy's mind or anything, but these high-ranking officials need to be asked these questions. We need more people to ask these people questions. And of course, he just filled us with a bunch of propagandic answers, pretty much, trying to give like the slightest coat of veneer that they have like some humanitarian side. We're warning people to leave. You have to just get up and walk or die. Acting like this is like the final movie in Hunger Games, where if you're in the wrong section, you will die. Acting like this is like a game of like musical chairs, but with bombs. We have to keep speaking out on this. We have to keep talking about Palestine. After the pause was over on Friday, it's been reported that 700 people died in 24 hours. And so what we feared would happen after this humanitarian pause happened. The fighting continued. The suffering is continuing. There's so many people out there talking about it. And props to them. So many people out there still protesting this issue. Keep going, guys. We cannot let up. We cannot stop, okay? Do not let this suffering go back into the darkness. Keep putting it in the light, everybody. And with that being said, guys, let's wrap up this video. Guys, go check out, I have live streams on Revolutionary Blackout Network's Long Beach chapter every Sunday at 8 p.m. Central. The podcast is called Beyond the Arc Politics. I do it with my co-host. His name is Stay Balanced. And we're doing current events, kind of like I do in Charlie Brown Politics. Go check that out. Please, guys, like, share, subscribe, comment down below how you feeling on Piers Morgan, how you feel on that piece of shit Israeli official spewing that propaganda. All right, guys, let's cut this. All right, I'll catch you later. Bye.